precluded. Nothing remained to hinder the balloon from ascending but the hands and weight of those who were holding on to it with ropes. I strained my eyes for the coming of the king and queen, but could see no sign of their approach. I looked in the direction of Mr. Nosnibor's house. There was nothing to indicate disturbance, but it was not yet breakfast time. The crowd began to gather. They were aware that I was under the displeasure of the court, but I could detect no signs of my being unpopular. On the contrary, I received many kindly expressions of regard and encouragement, with good wishes as to the result of my journey. I was speaking to one gentleman of my acquaintance, and telling him the substance of what I intended to do when I had got into the presence of the air-god. What he thought of me I cannot guess, for I am sure that he did not believe in the objective existence of the air-god, nor that I myself believed in it, when I became aware of a small crowd of people running as fast as they could from Mr. Nosnibor's house towards the queen's workshops. For the moment my pulse ceased beating, and then, knowing that the time had come when I must either do or die, I called vehemently to those who were holding the ropes, some 30 men, to let go at once, and made gestures signifying danger, and that there would be mischief if they held on longer. Many obeyed. The rest were too weak to hold on to the ropes, and were forced to let them go. On this the balloon bounded suddenly upwards, but my own feeling was that the earth had dropped off from me, and was sinking fast into open space beneath. This happened at the very moment that the attention of the crowd was divided, the one half paying heed to the eager gestures of those coming from Mr. Nosnibor's house, and the other to the exclamations from myself. A minute more and Erewhon would doubtless have been discovered, but before that minute was over, I was at such a height above the city that nothing could harm me, and every second both the town and the crowd became smaller and more confused. In an incredibly short time, I could see little but a vast wall of blue plains rising up against me towards whichever side I looked. At first, the balloon mounted vertically upwards, but after about 5 minutes, when we had already attained a very great elevation, I fancied that the objects on the plain beneath began to move from under me. I did not feel so much as a breath of wind, and could not suppose that the balloon itself was travelling. I was, therefore, wondering what this strange movement of fixed objects could mean, when it struck me that people in a balloon do not feel the wind inasmuch as they travel with it and offer it no resistance. Then I was happy in thinking that I must now have reached the invariable trade winds of the upper air, and that I should be very possibly wafted for hundreds or even thousands of miles, far from Erewhon and the Erewhonians. Already I had removed the wrappings and freed Erewhon, but I soon covered her up with them again, for it was already very cold, and she was half stupefied with the strangeness of her position. And now began a time, dreamlike and delirious, of which I do not suppose that I shall ever recover a distinct recollection. Some things I can recall, as that we were ere long enveloped in vapour which froze upon my moustache and whiskers. Then comes a memory of sitting for hours and hours in a thick fog, hearing no sound but my own breathing and Erewhon's, for we hardly spoke, and seeing no sight but the car beneath us and beside us, and the dark balloon above. Perhaps the most painful feeling, when the earth was hidden, was that the balloon was motionless, though our only hope lay in our going forward with an extreme of speed. From time to time, through a rift in the clouds, I caught a glimpse of earth, and was thankful to perceive that we must be flying forward faster than in an express train. But no sooner was the rift closed than the old conviction of our being stationary returned in full force, and was not to be reasoned with. There was another feeling also which was nearly as bad, for as a child that fears it has gone blind in a long tunnel if there is no light, so ere the earth had been many minutes hidden, I became half frightened lest we might not have broken away from it clean and forever. Now and again I ate and gave food to Erewhon, but by guesswork as regards time. Then came darkness, a dreadful dreary time, without even the moon to cheer us. With dawn the scene was changed. The clouds were gone, and morning stars were shining. The rising of the splendid sun remained still impressed upon me as the most glorious that I have ever seen. Beneath us there was an embossed chain of mountains, with snow fresh fallen upon them. But we were far above them. We both of us felt our breathing seriously affected, but I would not allow the balloon to descend a single inch, not knowing for how long we might not need all the buoyancy which we could command. Indeed, I was thankful to find that, After nearly 24 hours, we were still at so great a height above the earth. In a couple of hours we had passed the ranges, which must have been some 150 miles across, and again I saw a tract of level plain extending far away to the horizon. I knew not where we were, and dared not descend, lest I should waste the power of the balloon, but I was half hopeful that we might be above the country from which I had originally started. I looked anxiously for any sign by which I could recognize it, but could see nothing, and feared that we might be above some distant part of Erewhon, or a country inhabited by savages. While I was still in doubt, the balloon was again wrapped in clouds, and we were left to blank space and to conjectures. The weary time dragged on. How I longed for my unhappy watch! I felt as though not even time was moving, so dumb and spellbound were our surroundings. Sometimes I would feel my pulse, and count its beats for half an hour together, anything to mark the time, to prove that it was there, and to assure myself that we were within the blessed range of its influence, and not gone adrift into the timelessness of eternity. I had been doing this for the 20th or 30th time, and had fallen into a light sleep. I dreamed wildly of a journey in an express train, and of arriving at a railway station where the air was full of the sound of locomotive engines blowing off steam with a horrible and tremendous hissing. I woke frightened and uneasy, but the hissing and crashing noises pursued me now that I was awake, and forced me to own that they were real. What they were I knew not, but they grew gradually fainter and fainter, and after a time were lost. In a few hours the clouds broke, and I saw beneath me that which made the chilled blood run even colder in my veins. I saw the sea, and nothing but the sea. In the main black, but flecked with white heads of storm-tossed, angry waves. Erewhon was sleeping quietly at the bottom of the car, and as I looked at her sweet and saintly beauty, I groaned and cursed myself for the misery into which I had brought her, but there was nothing for it now. I sat and waited for the worst, and presently I saw signs as though that worst were soon to be at hand, for the balloon had begun to sink. On first seeing the sea, I had been impressed with the idea that we must have been falling, but now there could be no mistake. We were sinking, and that fast. I threw out a bag of ballast, and for a time we rose again. But in the course of a few hours the sinking recommenced, and I threw out another bag. Then the battle commenced in earnest. It lasted all that afternoon and through the night until the following evening. I had seen never a sail, nor a sign of a sail, though I had half blinded myself with straining my eyes incessantly in every direction. We had parted with everything but the clothes which we had upon our backs. Food and water were gone, all thrown out to the wheeling albatrosses, in order to save us a few hours or even minutes from the sea. I did not throw away the books till we were within a few feet of the water, and clung to my manuscripts to the very last. Hope there seemed none whatever. Yet, strangely enough, we were neither of us utterly hopeless, and even when the evil that we dreaded was upon us, and that which we greatly feared had come, we sat in the car of the balloon with the waters up to our middle, and still smiled with a ghastly hopefulness to one another. He who has crossed the St. Gothard will remember that below Andermatt there is one of those alpine gorges which reach the very utmost limits of the sublime and terrible. The feelings of the traveler have become more and more highly wrought at every step, until at last the naked and overhanging precipices seem to close above his head, as he crosses a bridge hung in mid-air over a roaring waterfall, and enters on the darkness of a tunnel hewn out of the rock. What can be in store for him on emerging? Surely something even wilder and more desolate than that which he has seen already. Yet his imagination is paralyzed, and can suggest no fancy or vision of anything to surpass the reality which he had just witnessed. Awed and breathless he advances, when lo! the light of the afternoon sun welcomes him as he leaves the tunnel, and behold a smiling valley, a babbling brook, a village with tall belfries, and meadows of brilliant green. These are the things which greet him, and he smiles to himself as the terror passes away and in another moment is forgotten. So fared it now with ourselves. We had been in the water some 2 or 3 hours, and the night had come upon us. We had said farewell for the 100th time, and had resigned ourselves to meet the end. Indeed, I was myself battling with a drowsiness from which it was only